Uh, Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mark, for the introduction. Uh, my name is Bradley Fletcher, and as Mark has mentioned earlier, I'm with Community Outreach in Toronto Water at the City of Toronto, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Garth Cole. Thank you very much, Garth. Thanks so much for your time today. Today, we're going to have some discussion about the very important topic of water and water conservation. So today's discussion is Every Drop Counts, and we're going to talk about how to conserve for both your home and your garden. So as an overview for today's presentation, we're going to talk somewhat about why we're going to save water, the importance of downspout disconnection and reducing the susceptibility of basement floods. We're going to talk about some tips for water efficient landscaping, how to wash your car wisely, how to deal with your swimming pool or hot tubs in off seasons, and some helpful landscaping tips for each of the seasons that we're facing here in Canada. As I mentioned, we're going to talk mostly about water today and conservation. So typically, why do we want to save water? Well, the uses are endless for water, actually. We use it for drinking, bathing, cooking, washing, and all kinds of other activities and sports. The importance of water with respect to our food chain. Water grows our food. Without water, we have no population. We cannot grow food. Uh, by reducing water, we're saving money as well. Fundamentally, I think everybody is interested in savings, and I have some really great tips for you later on in the presentation about how to look for savings and manage your water use around your home. We'll also have a brief discussion about some water supplies and the limited aspect of the water supply. Currently, 97% of the Earth is covered in salt water. Another 2% is captured in ice caps in the polar region, leaving just 1% of fresh water for us to use for our uses here on the globe. A really, really important aspect of why we want to save water, and something that's near and dear to Garth and my hearts, is the environmentally friendly aspect of saving water. And that most definitely helps to divert less water from our lakes and rivers and maintains our really fragile biodiversity, as well as reducing the energy that's required for our water and wastewater treatment plants. Here's some great images of some of the things that we can do with water. Of course, we're drinking, we're doing our laundry, we're cooking, and we're playing with it. One of the great tips with respect to saving water while you're cooking is to set aside your water after you've cooked things like starch products, potato or pasta, and set that aside. When it's cool, you can strain it and use it to water your vegetable or plant garden, or even put it on your grass for that matter. It's full of nutrients, and it's really, really good for your reduction of water use. I mentioned earlier that water grows food. If we break it down again, 97% of the world is salt water, 2% of the world is captured in ice caps, and then 1% is for us. Of that 1%, the agricultural sector actually uses 30% of our fresh water supply. That's a tremendous amount of water. I would like to talk a little bit about savings around your water and your water usage in your home. Uh, Reducing your water by 3,700 liters per month will realize an annual savings of $190. Now, 3,700 liters per month may seem like an awful lot of water, but when you consider things such as a leaky toilet on its own will waste 375 liters in just 1 week. A leaky garden hose or a faucet wastes over or up to 400 liters of water a week. And by the way, with your garden hose, when you're running your garden hose, a garden hose uses in just 1 minute's time, it will use 10 gallons or 38 liters of water for just 1 minute of your garden hose running. So again, managing your water in that with respect to your usage is a direct savings. Our water supply, as I mentioned many times already, is limited. Only 1% is available for our needs. And let's be very, very careful what we have remaining. Again, 97% of it is salt water, 2% is ice cap, and only 1% is for us. Saving water does save the environment. By reducing the water usage, we are, again, reducing the fresh water that's taken away from our rivers, streams, and water sources, and maintaining our biodiversity. Also, by reducing our water, again, saves energy, and it saves energy cost. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to treat and create both drinking water and the wastewater treatment plants. So any reduction in water usage is a direct correlation to the reduction of energy use for our water and wastewater treatment plants. Overall, as it relates to water in our life, it's a shared responsibility. We all have a responsibility to use less water, to keep our rainwater on our property, and manage what enters into our storm system. By doing all these things, it means that you're actually protecting your home and the environment while, again, saving money. And I've given you a few tips already. And I know that my colleague Garth later on in the presentation will talk about a few other ideas as well for saving money. With respect to saving money, it's not just a matter of reducing your water, but it's how we use our water and how we divert our water. And one of the best and most practical ways of doing that is by disconnecting your downspout at your home. Your downspout runs off of your eaves and typically comes off two sides of your home and then will then funnel down and connect into the storm sewer system. That is, if you're living in Toronto. We ask that everybody disconnect their downspouts. It's actually a bylaw. By disconnecting the downspout, the rainwater then gets to maintain its presence on the lawn or your gardens, wherever you naturally can run it off with your disconnection. The downspouts can then also, by not being disconnected, will then therefore overload our system, causing basement flooding for you and also contaminating our waterways, both the lakes and waterways. You can help to reduce the risk of basement flooding and help clean up our waterways by doing this downspout disconnection. The downspout disconnection is quite simple, actually. You would approach the side of your home where the disconnect goes into the ground. You would use a small handheld hacksaw. You would cut away a piece of your downspout. And with that section that you've cut away, you will insert an elbow. And with the elbow, then you can insert a diverter, as you can see in this picture here. And that will draw the water away from the storm sewer, as well as draw it away from your house. It's an excellent way of maintaining moisture on your property, away from your foundation, and diverting from the storm system. Some things to consider when you're actually doing your disconnection around your home. Make sure that you have a suitable area for the water to discharge from your downspout. A suitable area most typically is described as grass or sod or your garden. You want to ensure that the grading is proper as well around your foundation. In other words, you don't want your garden to be angled towards your property. In fact, you want it to be angled away from your property, but you do not also want it to be at an extreme angle. An extreme angle will cause runoff and it'll be more difficult to keep your garden hydrated, and you'll ultimately end up using more water, and that is not the point of creating a downspout disconnect. When you're disconnecting, you also want to ensure that your downspout that you use is at least 2 meters or 6 feet away from your foundation. Again, you want to maintain or stay away from pooling water around your foundation and causing wet spots in your basement or ultimately flooding. Ensure that the flow of the water doesn't cause damage to your neighbor's property or flow directly onto the city sidewalk. We all want to be good neighbors, so let's try to maintain that. Be aware of the possibility that the water flow that you've created with your diversion can also freeze or cause other slip hazards. So please be aware of why you're diverting your water and take into consideration the cold weather months that we have here in Canada. Once you've been disconnected from your downspout, once you've gone through those steps, you also want to make sure that you're going to cap the sewer connection that you disconnected from. There's a couple of points behind this. You want to ultimately stop debris from falling down into the sewer system and clogging it up that way. And of course, you want to help our little small animal friends as well from falling into the opening. Maintaining your eaves troughs and downspouts is also an important aspect of your eaves and water mitigation planning around your house. So please make sure or ensure that they're working properly as well to keep water away from your basement. Basement flooding is a serious issue, and it's a very expensive issue. In 2018, the Insurance Bureau of Canada indicated that the average, and I want to emphasize the average, cost of remediating and repairing flood damage was $43,000. These numbers that I'm sharing with you today are pre-COVID numbers. There's been a rise in construction cost material, so ultimately this cost would be even likely greater than $43,000. So again, this is another wonderful reason for the downspout disconnect. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about water efficient landscaping today. You don't require a lot of water to have a really healthy and vibrant green space. Green lawns and gardens don't necessarily equate to a tremendous amount of water, but it's watering properly and effectively and at the right time of the day. So I have some gardening tips that I'd like to share with you that you can use that'll save water and actually also help promote plant growth as well. When you're watering your lawn, there's a few key things that you need to be emphasizing when you're watering your lawn. First of all, you want to try to avoid watering your lawn at any other time other than the morning. Midday, the water will evaporate and ultimately it will not provide the saturation that is required for the roots of your lawn and will not provide any benefit. Watering in the evening or late at night, while beneficial for the roots, also allows the water to not evaporate as quickly, and it will therefore create some, it could create some fungal issues for you, and that's something that you're not really looking for either with our high humidity throughout the summer. So it's always best to use your time to water in the morning if at all possible. While you're watering as well, it's really important not to overwater. Watering deeply once a week for your sod is really all you need to maintain a beautiful green lawn. If you're in an area that has some clay soil, you may perhaps want to look at doing it twice a week. But again, really a healthy, green, vibrant lawn only requires watering once a week. It also is very beneficial for watering your lawn in order to maximize the amount of water you're using is to aerate it as well. That just really just helps the rainwater reach the roots of the grass. If you have an irrigation system, please only set it to come on once or twice a week. I know that a lot of people typically will use the factory settings from their installer, which would come on each morning. So please have a look at what your true water needs are for your lawn and maintenance and try to set that for just once or twice a week. I've indicated to you before, I'd really like you to consider looking at all of your garden hoses and connections and fixing those. A leaky garden hose connection can realize a loss of 400 liters of water in just a simple week. So that's a really important aspect of watering your lawn wisely. One of the other things that's also important with watering your lawn is the volume or the amount of water you're actually using. You only need 1 inch of water once a week, again, for that healthy, green, vibrant lawn. And Garth will have an excellent hack for you at home to how to measure your 1 inch of water later on when we get around there. It's important to know how to mow your lawn as well. Watering is great and having a healthy and vibrant lawn is beautiful, but it also requires some maintenance as well. And mowing is an effective, important aspect of how we use our water on our lawn as well. So please always try to remember to mow your grass when it's dry. The reason we want to mow our grass when it's dry is mowing wet grass will not only create clodding or clumping in your lawnmower itself, but it also creates large clumps of dry bald grass, or sorry, wet bald grass on your lawn. And without raking that up after you've cut your grass, it simply smothers or kills your grass. So it's not an effective way to manage your lawn and cut your grass. So always remember to cut it when it's dry. An excellent byproduct of cutting your grass are the grass clippings. They're generally made up of about 80% water, and they provide a tremendous prevention for moisture loss. So leave your clippings on your grass, and it's also a great way of adding back in some nutrients and weed control as well when you put your clippings back into your lawn after you've done cutting your grass. I have some ideas for you as well on how to save water by planting native plants and trees in your garden. Native plants and trees are an excellent way to gear yourself towards a water-wise garden, if you will. Native plants and trees adapt to the local climate and soil fantastically. And typically they don't require anywhere near, if not at all, any fertilizer or pesticides, which is great. I mean, it's good for our animals, it's good for our ecosystem, and we don't want any pesticide runoff into our storm system either. So again, these native plants and trees are great that they don't require fertilizer either. Our native plants and trees, of course, help reduce air pollution, and they provide shelter and food for all of our pollinator friends, such as our birds and bees and our butterflies. If you're interested in native plants for your own home garden, I suggest that you consult your local nursery or visit our friends here at livegreentoronto.ca, and they'll have all kinds of resources for you with respect to selecting the proper plants that are native to your area. Vegetable gardens are a very, very big thing right now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to efficiently water your vegetable garden. Before you've begun your garden, you should be looking at it as an overall or a general plan. When planning your garden, you should be really grouping your vegetables and herbs according to their moisture needs. And how you're able to tell your moisture needs is when you're buying it from your vendor, they generally have a little stick or a piece of plastic insert in there. And on the back of those inserts, it'll indicate the moisture needs. By grouping them together, you're able then to use the amount of water that's required rather than blanket soaking your garden each time. And that's effectively not being very efficient. Some perennial vegetables such as asparagus and rhubarb need little to no water at all actually to thrive in your garden. So if you have any opportunity, or if that's something that's generally on your palette or on your menu at home, please look at incorporating some of these wonderful vegetables into your garden as well. For those that like herbs, rosemary, sage, oregano, some other winter savory and thymes, these are excellent herbs left dry. You don't need to water them in your garden. They will thrive in your garden. They are deep root, and they just are just explode with flavor the drier they are. So please don't water your herbs. Save some water and have some excellent meals at home with your garden herbs. Some of the other things to consider with your vegetable garden is to prepare it on flat soil. You don't want runoff, and you want to ensure that your rainwater or your watering stays for the roots of your vegetables. For plants like tomatoes and peppers, squash, it's a great idea to add some mulch. This allows the vegetables or fruits to stay dry, and it prevents spoilage around them as well. Generally speaking, vegetables prefer rainwater. A great way of incorporating rainwater into your home and your water efficiency planning is to use a rain barrel. A rain barrel are excellent for such things. They're easy to connect to your downspout, and they'll capture all the rainwater that you're able to reuse. You can add perhaps maybe 1 or 1.5 inches to encourage deep root growth with your water, but again, be very efficient with your vegetable garden. Again, most vegetables are deep root and require very little watering. When you're watering your vegetables, if at all possible, it's a great tip to try to avoid using a sprinkler. A sprinkler uses more water than you require, so there's the efficiency aspect of it. But from the aspect of actually growing your vegetables themselves, it tends to be a little bit too strong. It can lean over and break some leaves. It can interrupt the planter growth cycle of the vegetables, and it doesn't provide any deep root saturation of water. Typically by using sprinklers, we have a lot of spray that comes over the top or the canopy of your vegetable garden and will generally evaporate before it has any opportunity to really, again, saturate any of your roots. Now, vegetables should be watered close to the root of the plant. Again, that's why it's really special to incorporate a rain barrel, fill up your watering can, and then gently water your vegetables close to the root is going to provide you with your best results for your home garden this year. I mentioned earlier, but a great way to maintain moisture in your garden is mulch. It helps to keep the moisture in the soil, and it reduces your need to water. Not to mention that mulch is an excellent controller of weeds, and it evens out the soil temperatures. So it's really insulating your garden, whether it be vegetables, plants, or flowers, from any heat stress. A typical at-home example of mulch that you could use would be straw or leaves that you would find. You can go to a vendor and buy a ground mulch, or there's actually a new product as well that's a plastic mulch that's made from corn that can also be very suitable for mulch. So again, mulching is really, really good and important with respect to maintaining moisture and reducing your need to water, so therefore being very efficient. That's really some of the tips that I had for you around gardening, plants, vegetables, your grass. Some of the other things that I wanted to share with you around your house and how we're going to be able to save water and be efficient with water is washing your car. I'd like to share some numbers with you with respect to washing your car. It's really important that you use a commercial car wash facility. And the reason for that is just simply the amount of water that's used. I mentioned that a garden hose tap, open or on, will disperse or dispense 10 gallons or 38 liters of water each minute. So if you extrapolate that into a car wash, you can understand that if you can extrapolate that into a car wash at home and compare that to a car wash facility, washing your car at home will use in the neighborhood of about 10 times more water than you would use at a car wash facility where they generally regenerate and recycle their water. So please, please use car wash facilities. 10 times as much water is used at home. For those of us who live here in the city of Toronto, by the way, we do have a bylaw that mandates that you are not able to wash your car in your driveway. You're not allowed to introduce the soap or other chemicals into our storm sewers. So please be cognizant of that as well. If you do wash your car at home, it's important that the runoff go to a grass or dirt area. No runoff goes to connecting sanitary or storm sewers. There are products that you can buy from automotive supply stores that are essentially canopies or wells that you park your car in, and it captures the water, and then you can properly dispose of it in your garden or your lawn afterwards. So if you're unable or you're not able to access a commercial car wash facility, you may want to look into, through automotive supply companies, this new system of washing your car and capturing it at home. Swimming pools and hot tubs are fantastic in these warm summer months, but they do pose a problem for us with respect to managing water when we're decommissioning our pools and hot tubs. To maintain safe pools and hot tubs, you would typically at home, you would use a process that we typically would be one of our steps in our wastewater treatment plan, and that's that you chlorinate your water. Now, chlorinated water cannot be dumped back into the storm sewer. We ask that all persons that have a swimming pool or a hot tub, when they're decommissioning at the end of the year, to please consider the environment. Please consider how detrimental the chlorine in the pool water that you have is to our ecosystem. And having said that, there are a lot of products available through pool supply stores that dechlorinate your water before you're dispensing it or draining your pool. I ask again to consider the environment and use your dechlorination tablets before you take the water out of your pool at the end of the season. So those are some other useful tips around your house outside of planting. So your car wash, again, uses a tremendous amount of water. Obviously, your pool uses a tremendous amount of water to fill at the beginning of the year, but that's a contained vessel. It's more so controlling the water at the end of the season and what to do with that water that's chlorinated. I have some really excellent tips for each one of the seasons here in Canada, and I'm going to ask my colleague Garth to step in and discuss some of the seasons and the opportunities that we have for each one of these. So we're going to get started with spring first, Garth. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could jump in and help us understand some of the things that we can do to be efficient in the spring for landscaping.
Okay, thank you, Bradley. Okay, as you can see, there's really no need for watering during the spring. You can let nature take its course. As well as it's when you're doing your first cuttings, especially, well, and throughout the season, the smart thing to do, as Bradley had said, is leave your grass clippings on the lawn. As he had mentioned that you're going to be introducing nutrients to your soil and also retain moisture, which is very important in the sense of not having your lawn dry out unnecessarily. A smart thing to do in the spring too is to aerate your lawn. There are devices out there, like similar to a barrel that has spikes on it that are hollow. And it's something that you'd fill up with water to create weight, and you'd roll it across your lawn. And what it would do is to pull soil out of your lawn and allow breathing space. If you think about it, when you walk on your lawn and you over time, what's going to happen is your soil's going to compact, and it's not very good for promoting root growth for a strong lawn. So it's an exceptional way to improve the quality of your lawn, the look of it. Spring is also a good time to repair your lawn by overseeding it, and a mixture of rye and fescue is perfect for our conditions here. And also it's a good time to take some mulch and put it onto your garden. And that is, as he had mentioned, it's a perfect way to retain soil, retain moisture, and also inhibit root weeds. And again, the temperature of your soil, it's going to help regulate that. This is a time too that if you have a rain barrel, which is a very, very smart thing to do, that you'd want to hook that up and get it ready to work for you during the summer. Hopefully we'd have the right conditions of rain and then dry periods, and you could readily use that water intermittently between our rainfalls, and perfect thing to use. It's got extra nitrogen in it. It's free. It's also, and if anything, it's keeping it out of the storm sewers, which is very, very significant in the sense, if you think about it, cities have a lot of hard surface. And what that is doing is creating a huge extra volume of water flow for our pipes, our creeks, rivers, and as Bradley as well has said, that it ends up getting more polluted because of its fast moving and picks up a lot of extra stuff rather than what a slow rain would do. Another thing too is it's a perfect time to work some of that yard waste that you've got from the seasons before, like the autumn. You've got your leaves, debris, things like that, plant waste. It's a good time to work that into your soil because it's already partially broken down, and what you're going to do is promote root growth, hold moisture too. But there's nothing better than yard waste to make soil. We have to remember that organic material is where soil comes from. If we didn't have all the time that has gone by, that with all the yard waste and leaves, all that natural death, I guess you could say, that's deposited on the ground, that is where soil comes from. If we didn't have that, we would be living on clay or sand or rock. So you have to remember that all your organic material from your property is actually gold, really. It's going to beef up your soil, add more nutrients, hold better for the moisture. So it's very, very significant to attempt to apply as much of your own yard waste to your soil and to your lawn itself. If you screen it, you can have smaller particulate. It would only in time just work its way into the mix and provide multiple benefits. So we have to keep that in mind. Anyway, moving on from spring, we are into summer. So this is, again, what you want to think about is increasing your lawnmower height, because when you got a tall grass, it's going to shade out the sun and keep your soil damper. And anyway, on top of that, it's going to give you a nicer lawn than cutting it short, and then it ends up burning with the sun. And so anyway, the lawnmower height is significant. One thing too is you only water when it's needed. A lot of times it's obvious. You can tell that we're going through drought periods or whatever. And so yeah, what you want to do is you want to give a deep watering when you water your lawn. If you skimp and do it often, which many people think, oh, I got to water my lawn every day, that is so wrong. You want a deep water. That's why we talk about an inch, because your roots, you got to get down to the roots and make them strong and hardy. And again, if you just do light applications of water, it's not going to cut it. One thing too is you want to really you want to pay attention to your rainwater. There's, your downspouts are giving you a great source of water that you don't need to pay for as well. So I want to use that word strongly. Be strategic with your water. You want to look around your house and think, where could my downspout feed water to a strategic spot? It could be your garden. It could be, spreading it out to go onto your lawn. But very, very significant in again, being smart. And the most important thing too is while you're being smart, you're directing the water away from your foundation. We can't stress that enough, that most times when people's basements get wet, it's because their downspout has not worked properly. If you think about it, when you've got water flow underground where you can't see it, there's plenty of opportunity for that flow to get inhibited by roots. It could be a dead bird that went down your downspout. It could be that it collapsed, and you don't know that that's going on. So when your flow is above ground, when you have disconnected your downspouts, you can see what's going on, and that's very, very, very important. And again, minimum 6 feet from your foundation. In some cases, you can't disconnect a downspout, and you got to be careful. Again, there's a big, big threat that if that flow is not leaving your property, it's going to back up and threaten your home. And with a home worth $1 million, it's the last thing, you know, water is just as bad as fire and can be very, very destructive. As it says here, you want to water your lawn early, again, because of evaporation. And what you do is if you got a tuna tin is a free way to measure your water. If you laid it out in an area that was getting, you know, the typical flow from your sprinkler and it went an inch, that likely means that you've given your lawn ample water. Something significant though is say it's going to rain and you have your tuna tin out on your lawn and it rained, say, and if you got a half an inch of rain, what I would do is do it in tandem and add another half. And so you work with nature, and again, then you want that break. See, it's very important too. The water has at the soil on your lawn and your garden that it has a cycle. It needs dry periods too. Otherwise, you're going to encourage root rot. And so, yes, you have to have a cycle when it comes to water in the summer. You literally have to, like I said, bounce back between wet periods and dry periods. One thing too is you want to hold back on your fertilizer. If you think about it, fertilizer has nitrogen, phosphorus. You only need to look at Lake Erie. Lake Erie has a huge algae problem. And the more that you put chemicals on your lawn, you're just actually creating a harmful environment for everything, including us. And all we need is a big patch of like Lake Erie of algae overwhelming the lake and literally choking the oxygen out of the water and creating a really bad state of things. So anyway, I guess we could move on to fall.
Okay, Garth, and by the way, thank you very much for that handy tip with the tuna can on how to measure your water. That's great. Thanks.
Okay, so in fall, it's as you can imagine, you're not out to grow something, so you don't need to water. You want to let nature do what it's going to do. It's a perfect time to seed, as odd as that might sound, that you're thinking that far ahead. But yeah, seeding with rye and fescue scan after mid-September is a smart thing to do. In fact, you know, even throughout the whole year, a lot of times you can seed, especially if you know it's going to rain, and you can keep your lawn thick and healthy. And also, the healthier your lawn is, the more apt you are to restrict the growth of weeds. And one thing I did want to mention too, actually, is if you got weeds, pull them out. There's little devices that you can get to get it down under the roots. In fact, even we have to keep in mind stuff like dandelions is actually very essential for bees. It's one of the first flowers that comes up. And as you know, we all know by now that bees and other pollinators are extremely important, especially if you want to have a good garden. You need that pollination. And so it's up to you to, like, you know, maybe get rid of the bad weeds. And again, not with pesticides. You're only hurting everything when you do that. So keep it in mind and don't think, oh, just my little bit won't make a difference. If we all add up what we all use, it becomes very detrimental. It's also a very good time to screen some compost that you've made yourself, hopefully, because in my eyes, compost is as essential as sun and rain. You have the ability to dramatically add nutrients to your soil. For example, a tomato, if you have compost or you don't, it's a huge difference with the quality of the fruit that you get. So compost when you can. Just because we have curbside collection doesn't mean to deny yourself the benefits of your own food waste, yard waste, and it's not hard. It actually, many people that do compost just love to see the effects of what they do, and they feel good. It's actually a healthy thing to do for yourself. Anyway, and moving on to winter. So winter's a time, of course, that we're not really paying attention to our gardens, but it's actually a really, really good time to ponder of what you've been through. You got to think what worked well in my garden, because there are variables. You know, some people have very different soil types with acidity, say sand, that sort of thing. And in fact, if you do have those things, sand or clay in your soil, that gives you more of a reason to add organics from your own property. Keeping them out of the waste stream just because they're picked up at the curb doesn't mean that it's the best approach to take. Sure, we have that. But again, you're denying yourself the best material for a hardy garden. Anyway, yeah, like I was saying, it's a time to ponder, look at what was successful. Like, you know, sometimes people will tell me, oh, I had great tomatoes this year and it's because of this or that. Yeah, look back and see what worked well for me and do it again. And it's also time to start thinking about experimenting. You know, what will I try next time? Something that might be more efficient for pollination, or you know, a food that you've never tried before. Like there's a lot of choices out there in the world, and why not try them? It's also a very, very good time to start thinking, geez, you know, do I want to expand my garden? Do I want to look at maybe naturalizing my lawn? If you think about it, the more you might naturalize, you're creating conditions for everything from birds to butterflies and all the pollinators. So the more natural that you have of property, it's good property management and smart for all of us. And so, yeah, think about where could I make my garden bigger, and how, you know, how could I get rid of more lawn? Because again, lawn takes attention, natural spaces take less attention. You only need to walk down some streets in Toronto and see what people can do. In fact, there's nothing better than getting ideas from other people. And so anyway, very, very important stuff. As you can see too, it's a perfect time to start your seeds indoors and get them going in time. You want to time it out to figure out to match it to the May long weekend, when I guess we typically pay attention to our gardens. And last but not least, it's a very, very important thing before winter hits. Pay attention to your pipes. All the outlets for water around your home are vulnerable to the cold. And the last thing you need is when water freezes, it'll expand, it'll rip open your hoses, it'll burst your taps. It's yeah, very important that you get rid of all water outdoors when it becomes a threat to you. Anyway, I guess that's basically our water efficient tips. And the thing too is we will take time for some questions, as Mark will mention to you, that if you have anything that we need to talk further about, we'll be glad to do it. And moving back to, I guess, Mark.
Thank you, Garth.
Thank you. Bradley, Garth, thank you so much. That was really awesome. I want to reiterate and recognize something that Garth said. in that when we were talking about pesticides, he mentioned, you think that, your use of pesticides as an individual person doesn't really account for anything. But generally from a sustainability perspective, we want to recognize that everything you do from a sustainability perspective counts, because when you add up all of the actions that everyone is taking, it makes a massive difference. So that's one of the things we really focus on at Live Green Toronto. It's really to try to empower people, empower you to make decisions that help you live more likely on the planet. So thank you, Bradley. Thank you, Garth. That was really awesome, really interesting. If you have questions, please put them into the Q&A box, and we will get to them. We do have one question. I heard that rainwater, and Garth, I think you spoke to this a bit, but I heard that rainwater runoff from the roof is not good for your vegetable garden. Is this true?
I can't say I've ever heard that before. One threat could potentially be there, and that's that shingles do shed an oil type residue. I don't think that it's super significant unless your actual shingles are actually degraded. If you think about it too, if you really wanted to, you could put something like a pair of pantyhose over the end to capture some grit, only for so long, because you are going to get natural things like the helicopters that fly down onto your roof. I think it's got to do probably with the degradation of your roof. Generally speaking, a well conditioned shingle is not going to be shedding like an old decrepit one that's probably need to be repaired to protect your house. I don't know if that answers that question clear enough, but no, rainwater is good for your property from your downspout. And again, what are you going to do with it? If you put it down underground to head out to the road, it's, again, I can't stress enough how threatening invisible flowing water is, because you don't know what's going on, and suddenly your basement floods, or you got a leak or something, and catches up with you. So I stress to people, wherever you possibly can, get your roof water flow above ground. And again, 6 feet away, you're going to see what's going on, and again, you're going to utilize that water.
One of the this is by no means scientific, but one of the things that we know is that a lot of the pollutants that get into the sewage system, the city's sewer system, actually comes from runoff on asphalt. So
yes,
when the water runs off the road or runs off your driveway or whatever, that's where a lot of the pollutants come from.
Car drippings,
Right.
drippings, for example.
Right.
You've got your different fluids that go down onto the pavement, and off they go into the storage system,
Ontario.
into the
Exactly.
creeks. And whereas a duck goes, what the heck's going on? Right.
I talked to that duck last week. Anyways.
Did you? You didn't feed it, I hope.
No, of course not. The other thing is I do know our friends at Fresh City Farms, who are a member of the Live Green Perks program. If you, by the way, do not have the Live Green Perks app, free app from the City of Toronto that connects you with hundreds of green businesses in Toronto. And Fresh City Farms, one of our long-standing members, they have gardens, they have food gardens in Toronto, and they actually say, we've asked them this question, whether there are concerns about pollution and coming in through rainwater, and they said no. The benefits of eating food that is locally grown is actually much higher than whatever pollution might come in through rainwater. So I think you're good to go on that front. Another question from Tal: do we empty the rain barrel in the fall?
Do you know, that's something I forgot to talk about. Actually, it's extremely important.
Great question.
To begin with, once fall happens, you do not need your rain barrel. But it's extremely important to literally disconnect it and allow that downspout to go back onto your property and literally turn your barrel upside down. Through time, I don't know how many people I've met, even with a couple of inches of water sitting in a rain barrel during winter, can crack your barrel and destroy it.
Yeah.
And again, the number of times I've seen people experience that, it's a shame. So what you want to do, like I said, you do not need water out there flowing into a rain barrel. Turn it upside down. It doesn't matter that it's frozen. It matters that it's not water inside that's frozen.
Yes, to
So
damage the barrel. Thank
very,
you.
very important.
Good question. Thank you. Are there any systems for rain barrels into a drip line or some sort of veggie watering system? Hand watering
what?
a rain barrel is a bit of a pain in the butt. From Duncan. Thanks.
You know what? Nothing's easy. And like
Yeah.
for the effort that you put out, it's worth it. And yeah, sure, you can do what you want if you think about it. In fact, you can run 3 rain barrels, one to flow into the next if you want, just by tiering them. But yes, down at the bottom of your typical barrel, you'd have an attachment. There's no reason why you couldn't hook up a hose to it with on the spigot, like have an actual tap attachment, attach that and have a soaker hose flow from the bottom of your rain barrel. And again, that's a perfect way to water. Like Bradley said, spraying water onto your garden is kind of a joke. You want to get to the roots. Unless you're washing your vegetables when you're spraying.
That's a great point, Garth. So again, the hose will connect to a rain barrel. It's the same spigot. It's the same connector. Just be cognizant, as you know, Garth, be aware of the fact that the amount of water directly in your rain barrel will affect your head pressure. And then, of course, the volume that goes into your garden. So that's the thing to be mindful of. The more water volume in the barrel, the greater the head pressure and the greater volume of water will go into your garden. But you can absolutely connect one of those soaker hoses to your water barrel.
Right. Or hey, you could have a spigot and fill up watering cans.
Yes.
So yeah, there's different approaches you could take using that.
I also know that Duncan has some kids, so he's got free labor. I'm not sure what he's complaining about.
Well, again, it's very healthy to be outside doing that sort of thing. Like I said, I've met tons of people just absolutely love to compost. Sure, you got to fluff it up, make sure it's damp, that sort of thing. And I must say too, composting, if it fails, it didn't fail, you did. You cannot screw up composting. It's just a matter of like making sure the pile's damp and that it has air and you've got a good breakdown that's going to happen because of that. If it smells, that's your fault. You put meat in it or too much grass. And yeah, if it's dry, add water. If it's wet, let more air in. It's just very, very basic stuff.
And actually on composting, we have a couple of questions about composting. One of them is, should we not put meat trimmings into composting? Home compost.
No, what you're going to do is create an odor. You're going to get maggots probably. You're going to attract animals. It wants what I would call preparatory food waste, and basically all your yard waste. The smaller of anything, the faster it's going to break down. You do not throw a pumpkin in a composter and expect to have organic material right away. You break that pumpkin up, and it would break down a lot quicker. One thing though too is you asked about meat. There is an approach you can take, and that's called digesting. It's a process used in the treatment of our sewage, and digesting is a non-air approach to breakdown of stuff. There used to be a product by Rubbermaid years ago that you put material into a non-air environment and smothered it. And there's other bacteria that love a no air environment that breaks stuff down, just similar to our digestive system in our stomach. It's a no air process. So yes, if you buried food waste and put other stuff on top, like soil, that sort of thing, I've many times recommended to people, if they got a hold of a barrel, if they dug a hole, put a barrel over top of the hole with no bottom, and a cap on the top of the barrel, they could have a digester. It's a another version of an outhouse. An outhouse can sit for decades on one hole because the material is a non-air environment. It's more smothered, and again, the bacteria breaks it down and leaves you with 1% of what you started with. Whereas above ground with compost leaves you with about 5% of what you started with. So if you think about it, 10 bags of leaves is going to leave you with, let's say 100 bags of leaves will leave you with 5 bags of compost type of thing. So, and a way too, like you want to keep your leaves because leaves again are a carbon type material. They're the dry, and you got your food is the wet, your carbon, your nitrogen. There's two different terms that when you put the two together, it's like carbon provides carbohydrates for the bacteria and nitrogen provides protein. So if you give that mix, so it's really smart to save your leaves in the autumn. It's like we would with potatoes or rice. We have that, that dry, it's another term, dries and wets, that make for a perfect working compost. So in essence, it's smart to save leaves, chip them up, reduce the volume by chipping them, reserve them, and intermittently feed them between your food waste, and you're going to have a good compost for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Garth and Bradley. I think our last question is, can you talk about rain gardens and how they help manage water at your home?
Do you want to take that, Bradley?
Garth, you're the gardening expert there. So, Mark, can you tell us again? The question was.
Sure. Can you talk about rain gardens and how they help manage water on site?
Well, if anything, I guess they're going to utilize the water if you have a rain garden.
What is a rain garden?
What is a rain garden?
First question.
I guess a rain garden is, if anything, it's a place where you'd retain your rainwater and create an environment around that retained water. It could be, goldfish or water-loving plants, that sort of thing. I guess that's what a rain garden is. I mean, I don't know what the definition of a rain garden is per se, but it's a place to capture rainwater and create a nice environment while you're at it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And some people actually hook up chains to their eaves trough and allow a drip to go down and flow down the chain. We have that at actually one of our facilities for Toronto Water, where we utilize the water that way and allow it to just a drip system to work its way from that flow. In fact, one of our facilities too, we use rainwater actually to flush all of our toilets in the whole building. Which goes to show you that,
Is that called the gray water system? No, is it? No.
No. Gray water is water that's already not been used. Yeah. Okay. Like it's something that you could actually put onto your property as well as your gray water. And that was an example of Bradley, saying utilize your kitchen water. I've met people that literally would take their sink water, which soap is not the end of the world if it's environmentally friendly, and they would take their sink water. This is people being very efficient, would take that water and apply it to their garden and utilize it that way instead of it going down and heading to a sanitary sewage treatment plant.
Good for managing the aphids in your garden too.
yeah, true. Soap is a good. It's a good insecticide, pesticide.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of as long as it's environmentally friendly. Yeah. One additional question: will mulch encourage? I don't know if you guys know the answer to this, but will mulch encourage pests like slugs?
Encourage pests? No. In fact, mulch will not encourage pests, and it's great for our butterflies and all of our other bees and our pollinators. Mulch is great for pollinators. It's,
yes.
And in fact, Garth, you mentioned that you can use your garden waste or from the fall, when typically in the spring you have a lot of leaves left over in your garden. It's really, essentially that is your mulch. And it's really important not to disturb that too early in the season, actually, and really try to wait until that May long weekend area to really refurbish and restart your spring garden. Because up until that point in time, a lot of the pollinators are still using those nooks and crannies and areas, to create their own diversity. So, no, it doesn't attract pests, and it's great for our pollinating friends.
And you're right,
Okay.
Bradley. It's so important. Like what we do when we manicure our properties is we deny insects the conditions that they need,
Right.
and so we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Yeah, if you want to have a rustic part, basically, to your property to allow those things to be. And again, like insects, insects are a threat, like in the sense that we're losing them as we are losing a lot of things.
Mhm.
And it's absolutely essential that we create these conditions and again, keep away from pesticides. We are hurting ourselves immensely. You can actually measure the reduction in insect life around the planet, and it's extremely threatening. Again, we
Yeah.
want to create conditions for them as well. And,
That's right.
we have to think that, no, an insect is not something that's just all going to bite you. It's going to feed you, basically.
That's right. Exactly.
Great point, Garth.
We have a great presentation on pollinators. I believe there's a lot of information on pollinators on our website. So if you go to livegreentoronto.ca, you'll find out more about pollinators, how important they are to our local ecosystem, and what you can do to support them. We are at time, so I want to say a huge thank you to Bradley and to Garth for an extraordinarily interesting and informational presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. I want to also mention that, as I forgot to mention at the top of the meeting, that this event was part of the Royal Agricultural Virtual Experience. So that's happening right now. So check out the Royal if you are a fan of the Royal. We're hoping that that we can get back to the Royal this year. Live Green has partnered with the Royal for a long time. But even if we aren't able to get back to the Royal in person, check out the Royal's website. They've got a lot of awesome things happening. We have, I think this is maybe, pardon me, Jess, but this might be our 6th Live Green at Home webinar, and most of our webinars are available on the Live Green Toronto YouTube channel. So check that out as well. You can get lots of awesome information on there. And next Thursday, we have a great, I'm so excited for this, a great demo of a sustainable seafood recipe by one of the chefs from the Distillery District. So you'll find out, you can find out all that information on our website. Hope to see you there. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and have a really wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy the sunshine out there. It's gorgeous.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everybody,
Bye,
for joining
everybody.
us today. Have a great day. Thank you.